begs the question, what do you mean by happen? Because when you are dealing with fundamental realities and you pose a question, you have to understand that the reality of the concepts of your question, when you're digging that deep, are just as questionable as what you're questioning.
Hey, what's going on, folks? Dr. Jordan Peterson is one of the most famous educators online in the world, and I agree with a lot of his takes, but not this one.
You know, so people say to me, do you believe in God? And I think, okay, there's a couple of mysteries in that question. What do you mean do? What do you mean you? What do you mean believe?
And the reason I want to talk about it is because it reminds me of the Kyrie and Kanye situation as well. If words don't actually mean anything like do and you, then we don't have a language and there's no point in talking. And a lot of people are saying, don't talk about the group, talk about the individuals. And while I agree that it's never good to blame all people for everything ever that's evil, we have to be honest with ourselves. Can we even function as a society if we're not allowed to name groups in any situation, only individuals? We're going to have a real deep discussion today about how linguistically, psychologically, and literally, political correctness will destroy this country, and it's totally okay to mention groups. Before we start, let's look at Joy Reid talking about inflation.
The people I ever hear use the word inflation are journalists and economists, right? So that is not part of the normal lexicon of the way people talk.
She then goes on to blame Republicans, like, why are they bringing up the word inflation?
So it's interesting that Republicans are doing something they don't normally do, right? Which is not use the common tongue, right? Not use just common English to sort of do on their campaigns like they're doing with crime. But what they've done is they've taught people the word inflation, right?
Yeah. What a joke. I can't believe people watch that programming. Show starts now.
It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. Yeah.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Sorry about the first one, technical difficulties. Round two, I'm gonna keep this video very brief because I think it's important and I hope people will listen and share it with their friends because it's fundamental. Political correctness, words, groups. Once you deconstruct all of this stuff, we don't have a country, we don't have free speech, and we can't communicate. It's like putting a mask on somebody and saying that they have facial cues that they normally have. They don't. You're cutting off part of their access. So when it comes to the Kyrie-Kanye situation, I'm going to play this clip and react to Jordan Peterson because it's very, very similar, and I have a message for a lot of people, Lex Friedman, Zuby, people that I really like Jordan Peterson, that I believe are making a huge, grave mistake when it comes to language, words, and groups. Before I start, I want to talk about Matt Walsh's What It Means to Be a Woman. That documentary he did, that perfectly showed how left-wingers and liberals are deconstructing gender and wording to the point where they're trying to be so politically correct that they can't even define what a woman actually is. That's the perfect representation of going so far towards political correctness that words don't have meaning. So we're first going to talk about why words matter with this Peterson clip. Then we're going to talk about why groups matter, and it's okay to talk about groups over individuals, because if we're only allowed to talk about individuals and we're never allowed to group things, our society doesn't exist. It's a total made-up political correctness, safe space, snowflake lie that for some reason right-wingers are buying into. I'm going to be as nice as possible this live stream. God bless. Let's listen to this Peterson clip where he literally makes 0 sense, and I'm going to talk about it.
Well, the question, did that happen, begs the question, what do you mean by happen? Because when you are dealing with fundamental realities and you pose a question, you have to understand that the reality of the concepts of your question, when you're digging that deep, are just as questionable as what you're questioning. You know, so people say to me, do you believe in God? And I think, okay, there's a couple of mysteries in that question. What do you mean do? What do you mean you? What do you mean believe? And what do you mean God? And you say as the questioner, well, we already know what all those things mean except belief in God. And I think, no, if we're going to get down to the fundamental brass tacks, we don't really know what any of those things mean.
That makes absolutely no sense. I'm all about abstract. I listen to the full context because people said, no, normally that's out of context. I listen to the full context. Yeah, he said a lot of great things in that interview. Don't get me wrong. Jordan Peterson's one of the best speakers when it comes to equality of outcome versus actual equality, where you can't always get the same outcome. He's great on those topics. On this, he did say other stuff in that interview, but that specific part, he's not saying what does God mean, which is not something that a lot of God-believing people say, but you can question that. I don't care. Question God, question belief. But he's trying to break down words and be like a pseudo-intellectual. What do you mean by do? What do you mean by you? At that point, you might as well be a liberal in a Matt Walsh documentary saying, what is a woman? What do you mean? What do you mean by woman? Do has a very easy meaning. You, when it comes to the English language, very easy. Belief and God are questionable, abstract. Like, what do you mean by belief? What do you mean by God? I understand that, right? Even as a Christian, I understand that. But do and you are words that you're trying to now say, what do you mean by that? It's like, do you want to go to dinner? Well, what do you mean by do and you? Those are the easiest parts of the sentence. If you're going to pretend like you don't know what those mean, you're no different than a left-winger pretending like they don't know what the words woman means. It's like this pseudo-intellectual word salad thing that people are doing. And I'm not doing this to demonize Jordan Peterson because I think he's a nice guy, although I think it's kind of insane that he moved from Canada to America and then fell for gun propaganda. He posted a Matt McConaughey gun control propaganda video. It's like, bro, you're going to leave Justin Trudeau and they're doing handgun control. The second you get to America, you start pushing gun propaganda in America. It's like, bro, if you're going to come to America, learn the Second Amendment, understand why it shouldn't be infringed on. And if you can't figure that out, then why don't you just go back to Canada and do Zoom calls and work from there? Because we don't need any more Americans in the right wing that are against the Second Amendment. So I find him very bizarre. He's very smart. In some categories, very, very, very stupid and childish in many others. But what I want to talk about today is words. They matter. If they don't matter, we can't speak. The big argument on the right wing, I've seen Zuby make this argument. I like Zuby a lot, but he's completely wrong about this. I've seen Lex Friedman make an argument. I like Lex Friedman, but he's wrong about this. They're trying to say when Kanye West says the word Jewish people, don't talk about the group, talk about the individual. Yet Lex Friedman himself will say, no, we are a group, and this is why you can't question that, because our group gets offended. What group? You mean the individuals? Oh, no, the group. The group that I identify as to only defend myself, but when you have a scrutiny of my group, it doesn't exist anymore. It's disingenuous. People like Zuby, God bless him, Candace Owens, who is, I think, on Kanye's side, so I'm not knocking her. I'm just saying people say white liberals all the time. Well, that's a group. Why are you saying white liberals? Well, that's what they are. But all white liberals? Well, not all white liberals. You get what I'm saying? Is that racist? Does that make you an anti-whiter? Of course not. You're using labels. That's how our society works. If you say, the Chinese, to mention China, do you mean every Chinese person in America? No, but that's just the word that you use. When it comes to Democrats, why say the word Democrat, right, Zuby? Right, Lex Friedman? Why even say Democrat? That's a group. Name the individual. Who? Pelosi? Chuck Schumer? AOC? Oh, they're not all colluding. They don't have a group that they work together on. It's just the individual. It doesn't actually make sense linguistically, psychologically, or literally to say you should never name a group over an individual. And I'm not saying to blame all of a specific group for one thing, but I am going to show you how the right wing, Lex Friedman, Zuby, these type of people are playing into political correctness, and they are on the side of censorship whether they like it or not. Zuby's a great guy, but he said a lot about Kyrie Irving and Kanye West. He's floated the idea that they're anti-Semitic, yet when Kyrie Irving gets suspended or Kanye gets his bank account closed, it seems like he doesn't really have much to say. So he's bashing them as hate speech. Well, that's hate speech. He won't specify exactly how or what. That's hate speech. But then when you have everything taken away, he posted a tweet yesterday and said something along the lines of, just because you have free speech doesn't mean people have to put up with it. Along those, he's like a leftist. He's a liar. I don't know if he's making a mistake, but I'll educate you and teach you the truth. First of all, the word homosexual doesn't actually make sense. Homosexual, and everybody can agree on this. I'm going to start easy and then we'll get to harder things. Why doesn't homosexual even make sense as a word? I'm sorry, I meant homophobic. Sorry about that. Homosexual is a word. Homophobic. If you criticize gay people, you're homophobic. If you criticize the LGBTQ, you're homophobic. If you make a joke, you're homophobic. If you don't like a gay person, you're They say that you're afraid of homosexuals, and the word phobia means fear. You must be afraid of all homosexuals if you disagree that, you know, someone shouldn't have got suspended for making a gay joke. Do you see how this escalates? The word homophobic should never be used because it doesn't actually make sense. The word anti-Semitic on paper, I understand that Jewish people in the world have been using it for hundreds, if not thousands of years, but on paper, the word anti-Semitic also doesn't make sense because by definition, Semitic also means Arabic. So if you have an Arab conflict with Israel, technically they're both Semites. So there's got to be a new word that's created to say that you hate you or you hate you. That word doesn't make sense. The word sexism has been abused. If you believe in a traditional role for a woman, you must hate all women. It's not true. The word racist doesn't mean anything because everything can be racist. Toilet paper, this, you disagree with a black person, you don't want to hire them based on an individual, you're racist. If you disagree with the left, you're racist. If you don't like Black Lives Matter, the organization, you're racist. If you build a wall, you're racist. The word racist should never be used by any intellectual because it doesn't actually mean anything. It's intellectually lazy. All these words, homophobic, racist, anti-Semite, it means I have the moral high ground. I'm a good person. You're a bad person. I don't need to explain myself. You hate all of those people. I know you don't, but I'm going to say you do because that's just what it is. So none of those words even make sense. Zuby, if he was wise or honest, he'd stop using them. Lex Friedman would stop using them. And now I'm going to get to the second part because Lex and Zuby, I'm not trying to pick on them. I really like Zuby. I really like Lex. But they're two very prominent intellectuals that say, don't talk about the group. It's racist or anti-Semitic to talk about a group of Jewish people. If I were to say most Minnesotans, people from Minnesota have an accent, you'd be like, well, I don't have an accent. I'm from Minnesota and I'm from New Jersey and I don't have a New Jersey type accent. It's like, oh, well, do you hate all people from New Jersey? Well, it's not all of it. Like you could say it's not all of you, but then to put a word and create a word that says you must hate everybody from Minnesota. If you say that people from Minnesota have an accent, you're stereotyping. If there's 5 Asian people standing in a corner and they did a crime, I'm not saying it's true, but, and the cop says, what did they look like? And you're like, I don't know. They were 5 individuals. Well, what type of individuals? I don't know. I don't want to say what type of individual. Why not? Because I was told by Lex Friedman and Zuby that you should never talk about individuals. You should just talk about, individuals, not the group. So Democrats, white liberals, these are words that you're trying to not blame every liberal or every white person, but you're trying to dissect exactly what's going on. And I'm going to get to why this matters with the Jewish, anti-Semitic, and word stuff. But real quick, I want to show you this clip because it fits right into this discussion. 99 out of 100, if not more, conservatives that speak on college campuses, they always say white liberals are puppeting Black Lives Matter. This is a very common narrative. It was in Uncle Tom too. I didn't watch Candace Owens' documentary. I'm sure it was in it. Black, white, Hispanic, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, all types of conservatives will say white liberals are puppeting Black Lives Matter. It's the white liberals. If I were to say it was Jewish liberals, do you think I'd get called an anti-Semite? Of course I would. But what if I told you that I have proof that that would be a more accurate term? I'm not blaming all Jewish people or all Jewish liberals. I don't think they're all doing it, but it is more accurate. I'm going to show you in a second to say that some of the puppeteers or rather inspirers behind BLM, their ideology doesn't come from being a white liberal. Their ideology comes from being Jewish. That doesn't mean all Jewish people did it, but it's just how do you describe something? You use words. What do you mean by do? What do you mean by you? There are words, Jordan Peterson. Do and you mean something, and if you pretend like they don't, we can't speak anymore. It's the same as a leftist saying they don't know what a woman is. If you can't name groups over the individual, then there's no such thing as the New York Giants. Who are the New York Giants? It's Eli Manning. It's Saquon Barkley. We have to use words and groups in order to survive in society. And when they say Republicans or Democrats, it's not all, but that's just the most accurate word you could find at the time to group the people together that you're speaking of. Let's play this clip real quick of the main inspirer behind Patrisse Cullors of BLM. This is the guy who organized. Listen to his ideology, listen to where it came from, and then I'm going to explain you why so many conservatives are afraid to say the truth, so they just diagnose it as white liberalism, because even though that's less accurate than what I'm going to say, it's safer. If you replace the word white with Jewish, they'll treat you like Kyrie Irving suspends you and make you sit down with left-wing rabbis. So people know the truth, they're just afraid to speak it. And this is not to blame all people. I'm just saying, how do you describe what's going on? You got to use words to describe it and groups to try to specify and get a little bit closer to what's really going on.
How did you get started? Well, I come out of a Jewish, socialist, somewhat anti-communist tradition. Not me, but that's what I come out of. Very strong anti-fascist. It's a joke, but I say that the fascist bastards were the first words that came out of my mouth because that's all I kept hearing about fascists and Jews and genocide. And I'm very proud of my parents for not, at 5 years old, I was thinking about people starving in Europe. Yeah. I didn't know what Europe was. And there's a world made up of Goyim who attack us and put us in concentration camps, and we got to fight them. That was the main point. My mom said, stand up to those anti-Semites. Don't let them push us around. So then when I met the black movement, I said, oh, I thought Jews were assertive. Wait till I saw this is the ultimate assertion, the ultimate anger.
So the reason I played that clip is because this is one of the most instrumental people behind the Black Lives Matter organizers. He's the guy who specifically inspired them and organized them into Marxist ideology. To say he's a white liberal, you could say that because some Jewish people consider themselves white, and it's just like a broad brush. If you saw a Jewish or an Italian running with a bag in their hand, what are you going to say, right? That's a white guy. You're not going to be like, he's Italian or he's, Jewish. How are you going to know what the person is or what you just say based on description? It doesn't make you a racist, but in a theft, you just be like, it's a white dude like this tall. Oh, what do you hate people of that height? Are you a heightist? What, he can't be 5'5"? No, I don't know how else. A white dude grabbed the bag, bro. That's just what it was. Oh, I don't want to be racist. That's what it was. So in this thing, if you call him a white liberal, I don't specifically have a problem with it because it's not like as accurate as saying he's a Jewish liberal, but it is what it is. It's like, it's all words. I'm not offended by them. I wouldn't call it racist or anti-Christian, whatever, anti-white. I would never use those words. But the reason it's important is because if you just quash all criticism and say, oh, if you group those people together, don't just talk about the individuals, but what if it's a Catholic church that's doing stuff that's in the Bible? Is it okay to say that this a Baptist church that's against abortion, do we have to talk about the individual priests and the individual people? Or can we say they're all moving like a unit? It's not all Christians. It's not anti-Christophobe or anything, but those Christians are moving as a unit and they want to overturn abortion and gay rights. It doesn't make you anti-Christian to point out that Christians in that church are doing it. You can use the word Christian freely because that's just what it is. That's as close as you can get to it. So in this guy's case, his ideas and his inspiration does not come from the fact that he's a white person. His inspiration comes from the exact opposite. The fact that he considers himself a Jew, and his mom told him that all goyim, which means non-Jewish whites, are trying to attack him. So if you were to say all Jewish people in the world are attacking me, that's anti-Semitism. But if he says I was inspired to be a Marxist because my mom told me all whites were attacking Jews, that's fine. And then you have a bunch of these frauds running around college campuses saying it's white liberalism. Well, not really. It doesn't mean everybody's in on it. Every Jewish person's not responsible. Every liberal's not responsible. Every white person's not innocent. And every black Marxist is not Patrisse Cullors. But these are words. Do you, white liberal, Jewish liberal, Democrat, New York Giants, Minnesota, these are words and labels and groups. That's how this stuff operates. So, for Lex Friedman and Zuby, God bless those guys, but for them to tell you that it's anti-Semitism, no, it's not. That word doesn't even make sense because Semitic people are Arabs, and to say that it's hate speech, now you're saying you believe in hate speech. Well, I'm against cancel culture, but it's okay Kyrie got canceled because you don't have to put up with it. Well, then let me smear you as a racist and say it's fine for everybody to cancel you. Oh, I'm against cancel culture, but you're a racist because, or you're a sexist because you think you're a woman. It's like, these are the games that they're playing. They're buying into the idea that there's a such thing as hate speech. There must be hate speech because if you talk about Jewish people in any sort of context, that must be hateful and you must hate all of them. What if I told you that a certain synagogue was doing something or a certain group? I hang out with Christians sometimes, and sometimes I used to go to men's group with Christians. Yeah, we're individuals, but we're also there for a specific goal. And if we decide to do something nefarious in the world and we're all working together under Christianity or as fake Christians or whatever, it's okay for you to group us together, and it's not our responsibility to get offended by everything. Oh, I'm offended. Of course you're offended because the truth offends you. You guys are all hypocrites. You say white liberal and white people are puppeting Black Lives Matter. They all say that. All of these conservative influencers say white people are puppeting Black Lives Matter. White people run the, it's like, I don't care. That's fine. But what if I was to replace white with Jewish? then these same people that have made a living being anti-cancel culture turn into the mob. They turn into the snowflakes. And I'm trying to say fundamentally, outside of the hate in people's heart, which I don't agree with, words matter and groups matter. If you're not allowed to group people in based on race and religion, what's the point? Is Koreatown a group of individuals and, a southern white area group? Yeah, at the end of the day, it's all individuals. You can go there and eat, but do you not notice certain patterns? The food's Korean. A lot of the language is Korean. Why? Because that's what Korean people do. When they gather in America, they put their signs in their language because it makes marketing sense. So if you have a guy like Eric Mann, who I just played, who is one of the most, if not the most influential person behind the founders of Black Lives Matter, who doesn't say, I'm white and I'm puppeting black people because I'm a white liberal. He says, I grew up as a Jew and I looked at non-Jews as goyim and they're trying to kill me. And, it's like, I got to fight them. I got to fight the whites. I got to fight the, non-Jew. Like, that's his ideology. Everybody's afraid to say it. I'm not hateful about it. I got dozens of Jewish friends that are not like that, left wing and right wing, but he is like that. So here's my thing. When Zuby and Lex Friedman says you're not allowed to say it exists, they're really just covering up. They need a safe space. They're crying hate speech. They're using the words of the censor. And then they're hypocritically, while they always make a living talking about groups, they're saying that you can't group people in. What if there was dozens of Jewish people in media with his exact same ideology? Doesn't mean everybody has that ideology, but what if that was a common theme among certain people? Not every Jewish mom would teach their kid that. It's like Christianity. Some Christian parents are like, whatever, be gay, I don't care, join Black Lives Matter, we're Christians. And then other Christian parents are like, you're not having sex out of wedlock, abortions are evil, and homosexuals are bad. Like, there are different Christians, but if there's a million Christians that say homosexuals we don't like and we don't want abortion, that does root from the Bible. And also the other Christians that are the other way, they might be able to make an interpretation of the Bible that way, but there's still a group of some extent, although it's loosely defined. So this idea that there can't possibly be Jewish people that look at other people like goyim and treat them badly, and that's bad to talk about or even question, it's a lie. There are people that exist just like that. He's not the only one. And that's why it's really weird to be like, don't name groups. Don't blame everybody. But how else are you supposed to describe things? If I couldn't say groups, I don't have a channel. The Democrats, oh no, they don't exist. The Christians, they don't exist. Jewish people, they don't. It's not everyone's fault. You can dive into, well, they're Orthodox, they're atheists, they're liberal, they're Israeli, they're American. You can break it down into smaller groups, and you could say, hey, Kanye, I'd appreciate if you broke it down into smaller groups, but this is the most deceitful tactic to be like, groups don't exist. Don't talk about groups. All you guys do is talk about groups. All Lex Friedman does is talk about his group. Zuby talks about groups all the time. He's made a living basically being like, I'm against cancel culture. Left-wingers are so bad. And then he cries anti-Semitism, and he becomes a black man in the same way that the white guy supporting BLM, he's that to Jewish people. He's not even a Jew, but he's like just saying, crying hate speech on behalf of another group he's not even part of. It's very disingenuous. It's very non-helpful. And everybody's waking up to the hypocrisy, the double standards. But what I specifically want to talk about here is not to be hateful, but to try to tell the truth about, you can't question the words do and you. I mean, you can, but if someone asks you, do you believe in God? And you say, what does the word do mean? What does it mean you mean? We get it, Jordan Peterson. You're an atheist grifting off of conservatives and Christians, and you want them to believe you're conservative and Christian when you move to America and you push pro-gun control propaganda within a month of being here. We get it. You don't want to say you don't believe in God. I don't care. Question the word God if you want. Question the word belief, but don't question the words do or you. It's the same as saying, what is a woman? You're exactly the same person. When it comes to identifying individuals over groups, sometimes yes, but sometimes no. It's okay to make certain generalizations and break it down in the best way possible. It's okay to say white liberals control them, but it's not okay to say Jewish people control them. Why? Because it's more accurate in some cases, and they are a group, I think they're proving this week, not all, but the ones in media and entertainment, they're a group that is showing Black America, our victim card is bigger than yours. I know you thought you were the king of the crop in America. We've let you believe for 20 years that you're the biggest victim and everything so bad and Wakanda forever. You know, we pushed this stuff to you, but now they're showing them, the people who run this country, you know, the individuals, they're showing them, listen, and it's not just Jewish people doing it. It's also other people in these positions that are pushing this narrative, you know, that are just, I don't know, for some reason doing it, but they're saying, your victim card is not strong enough to go there. Bow down, get kicked out of the league, close down your bank account. We will show you, be a leftist, push LGBT stuff. If you ever think your victim card's bigger than ours, we will destroy you. Lex Friedman was talking about individuals until Kanye West tried to say that his victim card with Planned Parenthood was as big as Lex Friedman's victim card with the Holocaust. And then all of a sudden, Lex Friedman went from an individual to a group. He said, you will not. He even compared it to the N-word. And then Kanye did the same thing on Twitter today, and they took his thing down for hate speech. It's like, that's the same thing Lex Friedman did in the interview, because he said, how dare you even suggest that your victim card's as big as our victim card? Who's us? Who's us? Jewish people? Is that what you mean? Your victim? I thought that wasn't a group. Oh, Anomaly just exposed it. It is a group, but it's only a group to praise. It's only a group to sometimes compliment, but don't be too broad with your compliments, because they even get mad at compliments. I want to show you something real quick from Jordan Peterson that I thought was hilarious. He did a message to Christians and a message to Muslims. Look, he's like, I listened to these videos, message to Christian churches, a message to Muslim. I have a question for Peterson. Where's your message to the Jews or the Jewish people? He would never. I listened to his message to the Muslims, and he's like, stop fighting, stop killing. You know, it was basically like blaming Muslims, like, stop it. And I agree, Shiites are killing Sunnis. You know, Muslims do need to stop the violence in certain areas. I agree. But it's like, then he does his message to the Christians, and it's a way more like positive message. It was like, Muslims, it's your fault. Christian, like, I mean, he had a nice message both ways, but he's like, it was a different, it's like, what would his message to Jewish people be? Because his message to Muslims was very critical. He said, you guys are doing a lot of evil, you got to stop. Could he say that to Jewish people? Could he put out a message to the Jewish people like he did a message to the Muslims? Of course not. Everybody knows it. It's the elephant in the room. If you don't believe in groups, why are you putting a thing, message to Muslims? What do you mean? Message to Christian churches. Why are you giving a message to all Muslims, but when it comes to Christians, just the churches? You know, he tailors his message to be more like, just, you know, the churches need to get stronger. Like, Muslims, you got to stop doing that stuff. What about the Jewish people? That's one of the Abrahamic faiths. Do you have a message for them? You can't possibly have a message for them, because if you even put that title in a video, you'd probably get blacklisted and they'd freak out, even if he complimented them. So the double standards are obvious. The hypocrisy is obvious. I don't want to waste too much time because I want to keep this video brief. Not trying to pick on Lex and Zuby. I think they're both nice guys. I think they've both done net positive in the world, but I can't have either of them from a left wing or right wing or moderate perspective gatekeeping the slippery slope of political correctness, gatekeeping the destruction of our language and the destruction of identifying groups and labels. They exist for a reason. If you have coffee and you have orange juice in one hand, it doesn't mean you hate coffee if you pick the orange juice or you criticize. That's not what it means. So the word anti-Semitic actually doesn't make sense. I know people are going to cry, but it doesn't. The word homophobic doesn't make sense. The word racist and no intelligent person would even ever use the word racist, because it doesn't really mean anything anymore. Even if you do something race-based, does it mean you hate all people? Because that's really what it implies. Oh, you're a racist if you notice crime rates. You're an anti-Semite if you talk about Jewish people. You hate them. You hate them. It's hate speech. It's hate speech. That's what Lex Friedman's saying. That's what Zuby's saying. It's hate speech. So hate speech exists? No, it doesn't. Just for them. Then how are we going to stop political correctness when you hate the truth, or you hate grouping things when it goes in a direction that you're not comfortable talking about, but you're willing to group other things? It makes absolutely zero sense. And when it comes to race, here's my personal opinion. I don't care if people like their race more. America is a place where there's multicultural. Everybody says everyone's racist, but everybody knows the Hispanic world is more racist. A lot of European countries have more pride against others. There's quote unquote, and I'm not even going to call it that, I would say racial pride exists all over the world. They don't accept refugees in South Korea like America does. Racial pride exists all over the world. And here's my unpopular point. I personally actually don't care for any group as long as you're not a hypocrite about it. If you're Jewish and you only want to marry a Jewish woman for racial or religious reasons, I don't care. I'm not going to call you a racist or a whatever. That's your preference. If that's how you were raised and that's how you were taught, you have the right in a free country to have a preference for your race and your religion. I have no problem with that. I don't even care if you think you're better than me because of your race or religion. A lot of people of every religion think they're better than everybody else. Most Christians think they're better than non-religious people. Most Jews probably think they're better than people, and most Muslims think that they're more righteous than non-Muslims. I don't have a problem with that, really. I think it's human nature. Tribalism, it's like there should be no tribalism. It's individualism. It's not true. The ultimate tribe would be a family or a friend group, and you know what I'm saying? Mother, father, this is the ultimate tribe. It's okay to have a tribe and then have neighbors. That's part of your tribe. Tribalism's okay in certain senses. You just don't want to be a hypocrite or have a weird tribe that makes no sense, that's unhealthy. But in general, a tribe of 20 strong people that are all moral is more strong of a unit than an individual. So I don't even agree with that breakdown that a lot of like libertarians and conservatives have. And then on that note, in certain countries, including here, if you are critical of what a group is doing, some of them, it doesn't mean you hate all of them. If you're critical of the Israeli government for force vaccinating their citizens or kicking them out of supermarkets or whatever the hell they were doing, I don't even know, during the lockdowns, that doesn't mean you hate all Jews. It actually might mean you love Jews and you want them to stop getting oppressed by their government. If you have a criticism of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, sorry, I don't know how much all of these Israeli Jewish conservative organizations brainwash people, but the Israeli government is not above fault or criticism. They're not completely innocent, and Palestinians aren't completely guilty. I know that's what Prager and Shapiro try to brainwash people to think, but it's not actually true. In reality, if you went there, you'd understand that there's a conflict going on both sides, and both sides have their faults in some cases. With that being said, that's not the world we live in. You're not even allowed to criticize their government without being called anti-Semitism, because they say if you criticize Zionism in any form, that means you hate all Jews because that's where they're from. Well, Italy is the place where Italians are from. There's not like multiple Italy is the Italian, country in the same way Israel's the Jewish country. If you criticize Italy, does that mean you hate them? You know what I'm saying? This is a very fine line. If you want them to be wiped off the face of the earth, I mean, that's a different story. But at the same time, the conflation of that has become, if you criticize that, that means you hate them, and that means you want them wiped off. And you're like, no. Maybe some people exist that do that. Maybe that does exist in some sense of the word. But to be fair, I've watched a documentary where there were Hasidic Jews who were way more religiously Jewish than any Jew I've ever met, and they're actually against the country of Israel. So would it be fair to call them an anti-Semite? I don't know. There's thousands, and I'm not saying it's the most popular theory, but there's thousands of Hasidic Orthodox Jews in America who are actually against Zionism in the state of Israel. They don't believe that it should exist. Does that mean that they hate Jews? No, they are Jews. That's just their edgy opinion. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that does exist, and they're not doing it because they hate their people. They just read scripture differently, and they think that it shouldn't, that's not what the scripture means. Just like there's Christians who think they need to get on their knees for Israel, and that's the only way to go to heaven. And then there's other Christians who think that they're misinterpreting that part, and that it should actually be Christians in that land and not non-believers. So, the point that I'm trying to get to, I'm not trying to say which side's right. We need to be able to have discussions. You're not an anti-Semite if you fall in any of those categories. You're not a racist. You're not a sexist. You're not a xenophobe. You're not a climate denier, an anti-vaxxer, conspiracy theorist. Anti-Semitism is the right-wing racist. Jordan Peterson is the right-wing, what does it mean to be a woman, in that clip that I played. And Zuby and Lex Friedman are the moderate/conservative, whatever they consider themselves, hypocrites that they use groups all the time to specify what's going on in their world. But the second that you use Jewish people as a group to identify a more specific thing that's going on, they say that you must hate every single Jewish person in the world and you must be blaming all of them. Can things be worded better? Of course. I mean, Donald Trump has said some things that I think were poorly worded, but would I ever say he's a racist and he hates all those people? It's not true. Donald Trump, for all of his flaws, he doesn't hate all racial groups or anything. He's not a racist, even if he misspoke and said something crazy. I mean, Roseanne, she's not a racist. She said something that was edgy that people didn't understand, that was worded in a way that isn't politically correct, and people lost their minds. Does that mean she hates every Muslim ever? No, she is friends with Muslims. It's like, it's such a fake cop-out, and I'm tired of seeing Lex Friedman and Zuby do it. No, I hate to pick on them, but they're the two that come to mind. Just completely blaspheme the First Amendment, completely blaspheme, I would say, political correctness, anti-movement in this country of people who are trying to fight cancel culture. They're playing into cancel culture. They're using groups when it benefits them, and then saying that you should never talk about groups from a fundamental principle. It absolutely makes zero sense, and it's okay to group certain people in and use words, and it might offend certain people, but unless that's your new stance, is we need safe spaces, that's hate speech, and people shouldn't be offended by racial discussions, then just quit your job and go get another one, because your whole existence doesn't even exist if that theory is your theory. So they can't coexist in the same world. What Kanye was saying, not everything was worded great. It was like a Trump thing. But what did he mean, though? He's give hours of speeches to say what he means. What he means makes sense. What he said, honestly, was a little off. The first tweet was not smart, and it was not tactical at all. I think if he would have said, I'm going DEFCON 3 on black people would have lost their mind. If he would have said DEFCON 3 on white people would have lost their mind, and so would conservatives. So I don't think that tweet was worded properly at all. But am I going to say that Kanye must hate all Jews forever and it's hate speech, everything he said from here on out, and it's okay that he gets canceled because we don't have to, free speech doesn't mean the right to play in the NBA and stuff because he posted an Amazon link? Like, you're not pro free speech or anti-censorship if that's your stance. And I find everybody using the word anti-Semitic, I'll challenge anybody, and I'm willing to debate anybody on the topic, because you can't, just like I said with Peterson, get rid of fundamental words like do or you, or else our language doesn't exist. Woman, man, language doesn't exist. You also can't say that it's hate speech to talk about groups over individuals, because then our entire language doesn't work anymore. And you guys use groups all the time when it benefits you. You just say white instead of Jewish because it's safer. You just say Democrat or Christian instead of Jewish because it's safer. They're putting on a clinic in this country right now. You can't criticize the gays or they'll ruin your life, and you can't criticize the Jewish group that doesn't exist because they need Black America. Kyrie Irving and Kanye West to know, you guys can do anything. Steal the mic from her, rap about this terrible stuff. In the NBA, Draymond Green punched and assaulted his teammate in the face. Draymond Green is a big man. He punched Jordan Poole in the face. He could have broke his jaw and injured him for the rest of his career. He MMA punched him as hard as he could. And he didn't get suspended, I don't think, for a single game. There's been people who've caught domestic abuse cases and got less of a suspension than Kyrie Irving for posting an Amazon link to a documentary. What message does that send? Black man, your victim card does not go further than ours. Lex Friedman, individuals matter. Well, what about Planned Parenthood? Lex Friedman freaks out, goes right back to his group, says his group exists, his victimhood is more important than your victimhood, and then he even tries to emotionally tell Kanye it's like saying the N-word, and then Kanye does say the N-word on Twitter, and then he gets his tweet deleted. They're putting on a masterclass. It's don't talk about the gays, don't talk about the Jays, Black, Black, Democrat, like there's levels to like what you'll get canceled in this world, but I think everybody sees one of them. I'm not blaming all people. I have love for Israelis and Jewish people, the good ones, just like in every race. I don't love all white people or love all Christians. I like the good ones, and the wicked ones are not above scrutiny. And it's okay to talk about groups. I think you should be compassionate and kind. But even if you are untactical like Kanye or Trump, I think it's very reckless to just use the word racist to shut it down. It's very reckless to use the word anti-Semite to shut it down. It doesn't help anybody. And it's the same thing that white liberals are using for Black Lives Matter. They do the same thing. They're not even black, but they're going to call you a racist if you disagree with them. You got black and white people using the word anti-Semitism the same way a white liberal uses, racist for black people. It doesn't help them. You're doing the same exact thing. Watering down the First Amendment, supporting cancel culture, supporting censorship, And playing into this idea that there's a such thing as hate speech and political correctness, you might hate the fact that there's certain trends in certain religions. You might hate the fact that certain people have certain ideologies and they were raised to think that way. And if they ever get pointed out or exposed, they will cry hate speech. You might hate the fact that, you know, Asians are performing better in schools. You might hate the FBI crime statistics. You might hate the numbers of who owns what in this country. You might hate the fact that there's racial conflict in Nigeria. You know, there's a lot that you might hate, but the truth sounds like hate speech to people who hate the truth. There is no such thing as hate speech. Violence is evil. Being evil is evil. But having edgy discussions about race, religion, and gender does not make you a racist, sexist, xenophobe. This country won't exist anymore if people keep playing into this. And whether people know it or not, I'm not saying they're paid to do it. They might just be not smart or emotional or lazy, or I would say perhaps some people are cowardly. They understand that playing that little role will get them more opportunities than speaking the raw truth. They understand that, so they're a placekeeper like Charles Barkley and such, you know, or maybe he's just dumb. I don't know. I don't think he's dumb. He seemed pretty smart to me until this. I don't know what they're doing, but I'm here to say this country won't exist anymore if you guys keep playing this game. Political correctness has ruined this country. Safe spaces have ruined this country. Words like racist and anti-Semitic are ruining this country. And having raw discussions about groups or individuals, no matter what you want to do, is how we get to the bottom of the issue, not just wiping out people's career and suggesting that they hate all people. And before I leave, I probably could have handled the guy who tried to literally smear me as like Hitler-esque the other day, but I consider that just super annoying. It's like, I want to debate you. You won't even have a debate, and you basically just try to say I'm a leader from World War II, and you're not even part of that group that you're defending. It's so disingenuous. It's so unhelpful. And, you know, I definitely defended myself harshly, but it's like, I don't take kindly to people trying to ruin my career and smear my name. You know, I consider that, I'm not going to say like it should be charged or something, of course not, but I consider that a threat to everything, because if that branding sticks for me and people believe that, they will then steal everything from me and also incentivize, you know, people to do whatever they want. So it's like, I don't take very kindly to that. So God bless you guys. I hate to be no fun, you know, in a sense. I'd rather just get along with everybody, but I can't sit and watch people on my side just completely blaspheme political correctness, censorship, free speech, First Amendment, and cancel culture. It can't happen. Share this video if you like it. Anybody that's willing to listen and open-minded. I come from a pure place. I do want to see racial healing between everybody. I understand that there's great people in every ethnic group and bad people in ethnic group, but it doesn't make you a racist to point out statistics. It doesn't make you an anti-Semite to talk about certain Jewish people. And if you do group people together, it doesn't mean you hate everybody. Perhaps you're not the best speaker. Perhaps you could have said it better. Perhaps it's the best label you could think of at the time, or you're upset. But I don't think we can just write everybody off as they must hate everybody. It's only going to raise the hate. Groups like the ADL, they're so bad at what they do. They don't stop hate. They're annoying. They're so annoying. That doesn't make people like you more, your people more. When you represent your people and you're annoying, you got to be the truth. And you definitely can't use other groups as a shield. You know, these words are so abused and overused, and I'm calling for the end of using them, because it fakes a moral high ground and just quashes discussion and plays into cancel culture. Thank you guys so much. God bless you. Stayintouchwithme.com is in the comment section. I appreciate you. Stayintouchwithme.com. That's my free email list. All my links are in the bio. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sharing. This is not going to be the most viewed video, but I do think it's probably the most crucial from a fundamental and American principled level. I really do. Thank you guys. Appreciate you listening, and have a beautiful weekend.